We're back.
But we're waiting. Marina's on.
Marina's on.
I'm here.
Diane's on. Ed's on. We got the press.
Yes, sir.
Good. We got Heather Deneen. We got social service. So one of the things we're going to do tonight is we're going to give you a little personal glimpse of our unified command. So we've got some of the town officials been working our ways through our crises to join us. So it'll be interesting. Again, do we have is Priscilla here? Priscilla's there. Okay. Marina's there.
Yep.
Oh, board. Great. So we're, nothing else. It's good to.
Well, I gotta unmute Priscilla. There you go. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, we're getting used to this live in Zoom. And I'll call this meeting to order. We were planning to meet Tuesday night, but we just didn't have enough capacity to do that. So we've made this a special meeting, so there's no additions to the agenda. We'll have our next regular meeting follow up on Tuesday. So we have a lot of things, a lot of important things on our agenda, and we won't make, I don't think, major decisions night on things, and we are going to meet again next week, regular meeting. So anyway, first thing is to approve minutes of July 21st. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any public comments? Public? Okay. Can we
Right.
have one of those after we?
Gordon,
Yeah. Hey, Bill.
hey, I'd like to call out the town crew and give them a shout out for the work they did Tuesday evening, into the evening, clearing Lake Road of 3 or maybe more trees crossing the road. They worked hard, they worked long, and they worked professionally. And Richard gives me a thumbs up on that. But great thanks to the town crew.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah. Thank you, Bill. A lot of times people do, ordinary people do extraordinary things in these times to help us get through. And for 4 people that made a huge difference right there. So we'll get into all that, but I appreciate the positive feedback, because often the worker bee gets often gets overlooked with the queen bee, and it's very important to recognize things, because it was an interesting evening out there. And,
I guess it was, but I appreciate very much the work they did that night and the ensuing days.
right, great.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Any other public comments? So communications, and in communications, we finally have communications back, although there is still some optimum out, and some telephones haven't been put back yet, but we've been hearing from a lot of people over the last week, so no official communications. So let's get right into the storm. I'll go over a little bit because our board hasn't met or talked about what's going on, and obviously these storms, these events are dangerous. There's a lot at stake getting it done right, and people were more than inconvenienced. There were trees on people's houses, and people, were cut off, not just from the internet, but from businesses, and things. So it's important for us to do this as well as we can. Each one of these storms is different, but they have some underlying themes. And so, as we know, the wind blew hard here on Tuesday afternoon. I'll just give you my personal recollection of events, and then, where do we go from here? What can we do better? What did we learn? What do we do right? So, and again, thanks for everybody for joining us. So anyway, winds blew hard on Tuesday. We got about 1 inch of rain, and it was pretty clear just trying to get down to the firehouse. There's 6 different ways I can get to the firehouse from my house on Town Street. They were all blocked. So that puts it up there with a few events to be able to block 6 roads. And there were a lot of people as I was trying to get around, just milling around, people stuck in these little pockets of roads, trying to get home, trying to get to work, trying to get out. And people were, cutting their way out the best they could. So luckily we did have cell coverage. So I was able to maintain contact with Jim and the crew. They split up and came back together, trying to clear roads the best they can. They had to clear some state roads in order to get to the town roads, but then wound up clearing a significant amount of roads that were blocked. We did keep a list that we submitted to Eversource Tuesday night, and at one point that night, the roads we knew were blocked were Route 128, Route 7 in Sharon, Yelping Hill, Town, Popple Swamp, Pierce Lane, Dibble Hill, Dudleytown, Lake Road, Cogswell, College Street, Great Hill Road, Hall Road, Route 43, Cherry Hill Road, Ballyhack Road, Great Hollow Road, and another place, Cream Hill Road, Bradford Road. So it's pretty much, and then pretty much we found out most of the roads had issues, Popple Swamp Road. So Jim went around and it was pretty clear that the town was out, so they pushed as many trees as they could out of the way. The fire department was able to maintain communications with the highway department. The fire department manned their radio. They had to dispatch themselves because of the radio traffic. They go to what's called an inter-county system where the main dispatch service in Torrington is overwhelmed, so we have to dispatch ourselves because everybody had 20 calls at once. And so again, thanks to the fire department for coming down, manning the radios. They also went down to check. I think we got to all 5 houses that had trees on them that night, check to see how people were doing. And luckily there wasn't more house damage. And the fire department again was out circulating around to get people the best we could. And again, the work of the highway department opening up the main thoroughfares the best they could that night was keep in reestablishing some sort of mobility for the emergency services. Again, we tried to get a hold of Eversource and the usual contacts people, sent them damage reports, but by Wednesday morning it was pretty clear we were on our own, and we had new contact people to talk to, new damage paperwork to submit. Jonathan and more fire department people met at the firehouse and set that up as the phone system here was compromised. And so we manned the firehouse, but even that had intermittent internet service, even with all the upgrades we had there. We had John Bevins come down to try to amp it up a little bit. We did okay, but it seemed like the method of communication with cell phones off the towers and people accessing the internet through cell phones seemed to be the way to go. Again, Mike DeGreen stayed down at the firehouse for 2 days because he was out of power and took calls there. So again, thanks to Mike for doing that service. Again, a lot of people did just ordinary stuff, but it made a big difference. So pretty soon we clicked in the idea of trying to continue. Continuity of operations is important. We learned that. And so we tried to establish, and we did establish a water supply. People down at Foot Field off the town water system, first time we've done that, but it worked really well and was very popular. Library nicely opened up for a charging station and cooling center. Mohawk, Camp Mohawk up on top of Great Hill offered hot showers to people. And on Saturday, we got the dump back, even when it didn't have power, and started getting people's food from was spoiled. So we collected a lot of garbage, and luckily we were able to deal with it better on Sunday. And again, we made the beach, not knowing, hearing there's going to be a heat wave. How do we pull people up? uh, and made plans to keep on our construction projects. Paving was going on even during this, and the ambulance was training on generator power at the firehouse for a test on Sunday, which also happened under generator power at the school, and we got 6 EMTs certified, even though we didn't have any power. So that was pretty remarkable the way things kept on going. Again, a lot of contacts back and forth with Eversource trying to get the main line down. Our strategy is to get what they call the backbone, the main power lines to go from the Kent line up to the Goshen line, stopping the substation at the Four Corners, and then it goes down from Cornwall Village to West Cornwall, and then all the spurs go off of that, but without those backbone feeds, you can't light up the rest of the town. So that's the strategy. We try to also give a list of critical facilities like the child center, like the firehouses, like senior housing, transfer station, and of course town hall, where we're supposed to have a vote on Tuesday. And that, so we made a list of critical infrastructure that had to be restored. Again, contacted our state representative, Maria Horn, who was instrumental in talking to the higher ups in Eversource. I was on the ground floor, but had a very pleasant liaison person who tried to get answers for me why things weren't happening faster. Anyway, relief came on Saturday night. Cornwall Village and the substation was restored. And again, thank everybody. I was getting calls from people as people were getting power back, letting me know where things were happening, where they weren't happening. So Cornwall Village was restored Saturday night. Sunday, we saw the Green Mountain Power trucks come and start flooding the town with trucks and doing some of the side streets. Sunday night, as Cornwall was restored, I was disappointed driving around town as I did every night to see after dark what was lit and what wasn't. That Cornwall Bridge somehow was not restored, even though there was no visible damage to the backbone between here and the Kent line. And again, that precluded power going to the businesses, the elderly housing, fire station, which there was generators rigged up, make those run, but that's expensive and doesn't necessarily, for example, cover all the circuits at the elderly housing. So we got on the case, and again, Diane Beebe was key with all this, and luckily or unluckily, she was vacationing in the north where they had better power, so she was able to have clear communication with state officials. But by Monday, when we didn't have the backbone restored, we became less polite and more direct, and actually started going to do one-on-one with the line crews here, and finally got crews down to Cornwall Bridge at 4 o'clock on Monday, and power restoration there at 5 o'clock. So we finally got the backbone up Monday night. Again, crews left town generally on Tuesday. There were the roads we became aware of, like Pritchard Road and the top of Dibble Hill and Yelping Hill, that was still not restored, but for other towns nearby that were in worse shape. So the power crews did come back Tuesday night and did get some roads done. And then Wednesday, still the top of Dibble Hill and Yelping Hill were out, and so we made visits up there. And Yelping Hill gets the prize, the last to be restored at 6 o'clock Wednesday night. And again, there were a lot of things that will come out that weren't done right by the power company, and I think one of the biggest mistakes was to send a townwide email Thursday to everybody saying their power is going to be on at 10 o'clock at night. And then we hadn't seen any trucks, so I said maybe they have magic or something to make this all happen. But at 10 o'clock, I was on the phone with Maria Horn saying, I want you to call, find out who's responsible for sending this stuff out, because again, it backs off our emergency response thinking this is going to happen. And it also gives people information that is not correct. So, and not even close to being correct. So she made some calls late at night, which I'm sure are interesting. And again, communications went out promising restoration that didn't get met. And then we did hear of quite a few calls of people being either hung up by Eversource, being put on hold for an hour or two. And again, people lost their ability to communicate. So it's very tough to call all these things in. And we did try to put out messages to call the selectman's office when we got the power back, or contact our office here. We did put things up on the website and Facebook. I have heard from people that one thing our takeaway is that we need to probably get more people on our selectman's email to try to get up another whole line of communication with people. But again, thanks to Jonathan, he did a lot of work just fielding calls. And again, Diane was working the state level. And today we have what they call Blue Sky Day, where everything is restored. We still, again, have some contacts made with Optimum and Frontier trying to get everything back. But it's been something. And on Monday, I did participate on a statewide Connecticut Council of Small Towns, which represents 115 towns, and this was clear. There were problems, not just weather problems, but coordination, operation problems all over the state. So the Congressman Hayes's office was called and said the entire Connecticut congressional delegation was called for an investigation of Eversource's response to this particular storm by the Department of Public Utility Control. And I was on another state call yesterday where I did talk to the head of Public Utility Regulatory Commission, and they are going to quickly investigate what happened. And there will be hearings, and there will be opportunities for people to tell the regulators what happened. Because again, one thing we learned that this is not a entirely private enterprise. This is a publicly regulated company that is given broad powers for the public benefit. And if they did not do what they were supposed to do, or the things they can do better, and again, is what I've said, we want to have a positive partnership. When Hurricane Sandy was supposed to hit, and that storm, they may have had more warning, but there were people out here before it happened, going over the circuits, going over town priorities, what are important. And so that clearly didn't happen. They've got a new way of doing things, and they have downsized their company, closing the service centers in Falls Village and New Milford, which in my opinion means probably there's less linemen. And so those are the people we need. In the same way we need people in the town crew, we need linemen. So, and again, the people came in in a big flood from other states. Question is, where were they going? There was a lot of trucks in parking lots awaiting instructions for a good part of Monday. So again, that's up to the investigators to do that, but we will let people know where they can give comments. And other states are looking at some sort of refunds of utility bills or allowances for claims for lost food or whatever other, there's probably a cap on that, but I think even a small compensation for what people went through, not that, there have been much worse in town in 1955 and 38. And another part of this is I've talked to Diane about updating our guide to residents on storm management, storm preparedness. We put something out in the Chronicle, and I think we'll do that again. And that was a suggestion from Ed Furman. Thank you, Ed. Good idea, and we might put that out on the website, update that fairly soon, because the big takeaway from the governor's call was talking to the state forecasters who said we're going to have an active hurricane season this fall, is what they're saying. So again, this is not trying to be beat up on the power company. We're trying to get prepared for the next one, is where we're at. We want to have things work as well as possible. We want people to be prepared. And I would say that if there's a silver lining of driving around town during this whole thing, it was very great to see the way people were looking after each other on street after street. I said only in Cornwall can you have fit 70-year-olds lugging water for fit 90-year-olds. And everybody having a good time. At one point, we had no power, so I was handing people out tomatoes because I couldn't bring the power back. And again, there was a certain sense of neighborhoods and people looking after each other, checking in. And that, again, was a real strength of the town. It came through. The town will be submitting some FEMA paperwork as an after report, and the State Emergency Management Committee wants to have an after action report of all the realities of what happened. So we'll be working with them to, again, make improvements for the next time. And again, we look forward to having good partnerships with all the key players in these things. But anyway, that's enough out of me, I think, for the time being. Is there any questions from the board about, the storm, what happened? There is going to be an afterward, an epilogue on all this because the state people are, they're taking it seriously as far as what happened, what didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the preparedness factor is key. I found myself really unprepared, which I often am not. I'm usually the one that's filling up, pots of water and stuff. And maybe I was not understanding the severity of the warnings, or was it that the storm took a track that wasn't expected? But, I didn't leave work early, like perhaps I would have during a snowstorm or anything like that. So if we can get that nailed down for residents for the future, I think that would be great, because I feel like a lot of people were kind of like, I didn't do anything I normally would have in preparation for an emergency. And of course, weather is an obstacle and it has its own mind, but I did find that sort of strange for this particular storm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty surprised. We did have to get people out of places they didn't want to be in, and that's a very common. So any other questions from the board on that?
No, just a reiteration about our town crew. I was just so impressed and so thankful. I traveled to other towns in the aftermath, and there were trees down everywhere in some surrounding towns. So I'm really grateful that they did such significant clearing.
Yeah, I mean, experience matters, and knowing a town like the back of your hand matters. And I think that's the thing too with the old power company. They used to have more robust local crews, and there'd be somebody that would know all this stuff for years. And you can't glorify the past too much, but that came in handy, and that's what people downsize and everything. Some things are really important not to downsize. So again, this is going to be a big deal. And again, our experience came into play there. Yeah, so any other, we do have public comment. Is there any, I know the Chronicle is covering this, and I think they're, again, a key player in trying to get, the message out as far as being prepared for the next one. This was bad, but could be worse. Any thoughts? And again, from while we're on all this, is it's fresh because we have a lot of other things to talk about. We can just open it up if there's any questions from the press. I see we have the Waterbury here and the Lakeville Journal going strong. So any questions from the press on just on the storm? Yes, Ed.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, we got to unmute you or something.
Hold on, Ed. I'm trying to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Anyway, the suggestion in the letter was that communication during the storm from you was made through either Facebook or the town website. which seems to Bob and me not a great way to communicate. Our suggestion is that the town make an effort to compile a comprehensive email list of as many residents in town as possible. And even during a storm like this, cable is down, people can check email through a cell signal. I think this would be a far better method to communicate to the residents of town than postings on the website, which sometimes can be difficult to access and read.
Yeah, I think a very, very good point. And we did start our little email thing, and we definitely need to hit that button and expand on it. And we do have, I think we did send out to a broader distribution for our COVID letters than we did this time. So again, we hit that list. And if anybody wants to opt out, if they don't like hearing this stuff, they can opt out. It is, yeah, so we will make an effort, and it would be good that we can give you follow-up information if you want to be on the email list. We also have reverse 911 that we can do, but we can't do that like on a daily basis. And the other thing is difficult too, as things change, like the gas station is open, so you don't have to drive to Litchfield. So we have to be able to do this fairly constantly. I'm sure we can do something better.
So I can speak to that. So that was was one of the reasons to do a subscriber-based email chain. What I learned throughout this process is that list has to be exported and available to just using an email service like a Gmail or the town selectman's office, because I have been the one that's been creating the town emails that you receive via the MailChimp, but I couldn't access my computer and I couldn't function it through my cell phone. I didn't have good enough Wi-Fi to send out a campaign like that. So what I think is the lesson learned is that list that lives on this cloud on the internet needs to be exported perhaps weekly to an Excel sheet that it lives at the town hall, and that when town hall's back up and running, they can send out the town-wide email. I think we learned our lesson. That was one of the goals of the actual email chain that we started. But it takes sometimes an emergency to realize, oh, I actually can't even access the program to send out the email. So I think that's a great point, and I think that now there's some action items that can be taken. So the town-wide email list exists, but it exists on this cloud. And so when I'm sitting on my iPhone 7, very limited cell phone service, I may not even be able to get into that program. So that's noted, and I can certainly work with Jonathan on that.
Yeah, I think it's important to have several different ways to communicate with people, because we had one storm where we lost all our cell towers.
Right.
So imagine, there was a lot of data being transmitted through one or two towers here. And again, we have to be able to hit it in a couple different ways, but certainly we can work on that.
And another point a town resident brought up to me was, perhaps, I don't know if this happened because I was all over the place, but just me printing out, if we have the ability to print something out, or even handwriting something and posting it at the post offices. So like when the town drinking water went up, like maybe post the physical flyer. I'm a digital person, but this sort of takes you back to actual paper and pen or whatever, with the date and, town drinking water at Foot Fields. Because I think we talked about that when we were discussing what happens if the grid gets knocked out, what do we do? And we were talking about sort of going back to that, let's post physical flyers around, which may or may not have been helpful for people during this time.
Well, I think the other thing too is, because what was good was that the country market has a generator, so they were able to stay open.
Yeah.
And they made that known. So again, there's a gas in place right through the whole thing. So again, trying to get it organized. And again, I think we'll update our emergency plan with a couple different variations on what we need to do, keep people in the loop. But again, having the drinking water, and again, we had our local sign company at the town garage make up the big sign. So that's good. Again, Diane brought in a load of, I think on Saturday, got a load of water from the National Guard. A couple complaints about the taste, but it was real water. It was nice. And again, just having people being able to hook up to a tested water system that's, can put out a lot of water. I mean, there were people there filling up 5-gallon pails. There were people saved a trip to the river for a lot of people. So, yeah, a lot, quite a bit people learn. So if that's the board, Diane is here, and I see Heather is here too. So maybe Diane, if you want to cut in and give another look at it from the emergency management director perspective. Just my one question to you is I think we were talking Tuesday night, to sound cool, calm, cool, and collected, as we said, the entire town has sort of like been hammered, or what was it like to be not here and then to get all these partial reports about what was happening? Was any of it coherent?
Well, everybody was very calm and cool, probably calm and cooler than I was being remote. But in many ways, that actually worked out because I did have communication. I was able to get on the internet, and the board probably doesn't know this, but there is with the state special program WebEOC where we go out and start to record all of the outages and the streets that are blocked and what the priorities are, so that they're starting to gather all of the information. So there were folks at the firehouse feeding this information to me. As long as the cell tower was up, they were able to get that to me. I was logged in and getting all of that information out to the state. And then following up with Eversource, had a number of conversations, had a conversation that evening, and then a number of conversations on Wednesday. Gordon and I were able to stay in touch, which was really positive, and to go through it. It was a little frustrating being away, but then the minute, I was back in town, like everyone else, I was without cell service, without electricity, without internet. And driving around, checking on different things and finding locations where I could then get a signal and continue with my work with the state. We do keep a landline here on Pine Street, and I have an old Princess phone. If you remember those really old-fashioned kind of phones, it's so I'm not using a digital phone or a cordless phone kind of thing that requires electricity. We keep that in a box. So we got home, I pulled that out, plugged it in, and at least I could communicate with the state and various folks on a landline. So that was positive. Yeah, everybody was very good. The information I felt flowed very well. And as Gordon pointed out, one of our biggest challenges was to get the feedback we needed from Eversource. And Marina, to your point on the storm itself, that was the interesting thing from my vantage point, was trying to monitor the track of the storm and the level of it. So there was a lot of press about it being a hurricane further south, and then it was downgraded to tropical. And we just had a tropical storm move up through, the Hudson River Valley. It wasn't terribly problematic. And I think that lulled a lot of folks into, oh, this is just tropical, not so bad. But it really did pack a punch from a wind perspective because it did track further west than was expected. We anticipated it went over land, it would weaken. But when you are on the east side of an eye of the storm like that, you're in heavy wind. We wanted the rain. Unfortunately, we got the wind, and that really was a trauma. So trying to get out messaging as we're listening to the track of the storms and what the impacts may be is something that we're going to focus on. We did use the transfer station as a bit of a communication hub. Ted was great. He picked up some water from the pavilion at Foot Field so that it was there at the transfer station for folks that he saw who appeared to really need some water, and also was communicating to folks that were coming to the transfer station that water was available. So we've started really focusing on what we can put together. You know, contact information. It's a little challenging if suddenly someone finds they have a phone, they have no contact. But if they encounter somebody who can make contact for them, it's good that we post that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, is that kind of communication, both before a storm and after. I'm watching the tropics now. Josephine, it was tropical depression number 11, has been named Josephine. Right now, it started out with a track, very much like this past storm, but current models are showing that, you know, swinging or out and around and not even coming up the coast. But we're going to continue to monitor that so we can get information to folks. My concern is a fast following storm, even a thunderstorm, with the condition of what we encountered with wires, etc. I know the Eversource and the various groups that came in did repair, but often these aren't permanent fixes. And if you get a severe enough storm that follows very closely, it's very easy for services to then go down again. So, you know, we'll be watching that activity and trying to make sure we can communicate with everyone. Did anybody have any questions for me?
I had a question. I don't know if it's just for you or for Gordon as well. I know that some towns have a text, an opt-in text communication service. I don't know how expensive these are, or, you know, like we said, some people don't even have cell phone service. But I'm just off the top of my head thinking, like, would that be some sort of a program to look into? Sort of these automated text messages, because then that's like that can be in, you know, very real time, and maybe better than email even. I mean, email wouldn't negate, but I wonder if those services would be available to a town of our size, if we could even manage that. But I haven't looked into anything like that, but I just was wondering if that had been looked into before for after other town issues.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. You know, there is through the news channels, you know, you can get various alerts, but something that's actually driven by the town, I think that's we're going to add to the list to research.
Okay, great.
And see what would be required there.
Town of Warren are sending out Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to check. I'm going to follow up. We have regular meetings. I have regular meetings with fellow EMDs in the other towns. So we've been listening, you know, to one another's, you know, woes and solutions and learnings along the way. So we'll be having another meeting to go over this. We just received, Cornwall just received 3 emergency radios from the state that are for fire, EMS, and myself. And so we actually got to employ those radios during this storm. We had a meeting with the state and the other EMDs over that radio. And I was actually surprised at how well that worked. So we're improving our broader communication. We'll be looking at how we can improve our local communication.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. And Heather Deneen is here. Heather is a great member of our team. And one of our concerns, as I kept on hearing about people's refrigeration going out, is making sure the food supply in town stayed intact. And we met yesterday. We meet every week to talk about COVID, and we're just going to keep going, meeting until we get a better handle on that. And the key thing has been our food necessities support system. And we did try to call everybody that's on our call list several days ago to see how they're doing. And again, Heather's been a great person to follow up and know what's going on. So Heather, can you just give us a little update on how sometimes people don't think about that, is how this storm from a social service standpoint you have this, so, you know, it's all connected with like what's going on with COVID, what's going on with things. So why don't you give us a social service standpoint, impact of COVID and storm in particular. So there's Heather. Is Heather muted?
She's not muted. We just can't hear her.
So we can't hear you, Heather.
Update.
Right. So Heather, maybe what we'll do is because we're not being able to pick up your audio, maybe we can just have an update on Tuesday if that works. Okay. All right. So anyway, the bottom line that we heard yesterday at our meeting was that because people lost a lot of food and there is also uncertainty with the COVID relief packages and things, that there was a large demand for food at the food delivery service over the weekend. I think they got food out to over 100 people, which is probably double the normal clientele. And again, because people lost a lot, we're going to increase that amount to get everybody back to where they should be. So again, we're probably going to deplete some of the funds in the food and fuel line, but people have been very generous, so we might put out a special appeal for that service because it has worked really well. We've got some new volunteers. And again, thanks so much for Heather for all she does for so many people in town. And we'll get an update on Tuesday on the particulars for that. So so next week, go into our COVID update. Before the storm hit, we got a very nice gift basket from the National Iron Bank of various sanitizers and masks and things, which we've already dispersed for good use. So thanks to the local bank for that. A couple things, big items, as COVID is still with us and is projected to make a serious reappearance in this fall. There was a townwide conference call yesterday about the school reopening, and again, we're meeting with the new principal there, and she's working with her staff to make that as seamless as possible. Going back into session on September 8th, there have been some new students attending the school, and we have again, there's been a lot of planning to make that as safe as possible for the school reopening. So there's been good efforts to communicate to the parents, to students, what's going on there. So again, that's ongoing, and we'll be continuing to meet with the school staff to make the opening as successful, very successful. So another thing, as I alluded to earlier, we did have a primary here on Tuesday. There was a pretty good voter turnout, and to do that, they had to have the social distancing aspects in place. Found that the town hall was pretty tight. Once you had to keep people 6 feet apart, they were out the door even for a sort of a non-contest. So our voting people are concerned about how, especially November, is going to work, and they're probably going to ask the select to try to arrange bigger, more space, possibly at the school, to assure people. Again, we're trying to get as much absentee voting as possible, but a lot of people do like to do it in person. So anyway, so that's one issue that we're going to have to work on, the voting process. And again, that also plays into some of other stuff, because coming up in the next couple months, we do have to have some town meetings. And we have to work on a process that is fair, accurate, legal, and all those things. So right now we're looking at, even before the presidential and congressional votes in November, we have an annual town meeting the end of October, where we review the year before and the town report and the things, and those are set by statute. We also have talked about having a referendum if the numbers come in about redoing the West Cornwall wastewater management issue. So again, that's going to be a big issue, big turnout. We have to, again, how do we vote in the COVID age? I have heard of places voting remotely in a town meeting. Certainly we would have absentee ballots available for the West Cornwall thing. But again, it's a referendum process that has to be worked out. Whether we have a virtual town meeting for some of the smaller issues, that's something, again, our board's gonna have to work on in the next month or so, to come up with how do we do town meetings in the COVID age. And again, people felt that requiring people to vote in person was not well received in some towns, because people didn't want to go to a town meeting with a bunch of people in an enclosed place, which is totally understandable from my perspective, from a lot of people's perspective, I think. So we got to sort of balance out the need to participate fully with the need to be as absolutely safe as possible. So, and again, with a couple, we're not obviously going to have absentee ballots for something like improving the 5-year plan, but we do need to think about voting on some major issues in the fall in a couple different venues. So that's one thing that's come up that we have to work on. So I see Heather's back. You want audio again?
Yeah, I'm on a new platform. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, perfect. All right, great. Heather, let's go back to just give us a general update on how social services are doing, because I know we've had people working really hard to make sure people don't get left behind in this time of crisis. And again, we've been meeting every week since March. Again, and we'll just keep on meeting, but I know a lot has been happening with a great group of volunteers. So tell us in your own words, how are things doing with social services?
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to bring up, actually just messaged over to Marina in response to her question, was I use a robocall system that was in place prior to my time for my caseload. So it sends texts, does a phone call and an email with any messages I have. So if the food pantry were to close, I could get that information out to people. So happy to pass that information along. I don't know what its capacity is in terms of number of people you can add and all of that, but in terms of the town perspective, that might be an option. So as Gordon referenced earlier, I was super impressed as always with the way people stepped up for their neighbors. So a lot of people checking on their neighbors, coming down, getting supplies. We offered food bags and supplies to people on Sunday and Monday this week. So for those of you who don't know, since COVID in March, we've just been doing deliveries of food to people. So they submit their list of what they need by Thursday, and then on Monday we either deliver or they're able to pick up at the parish house, which is where we're running things right now. So this past week we just did sort of a standard bag. We didn't have the volunteers delivering just because we were sort of unsure about trees and fires and all that. So people came from 12 to 2 on Sunday and Monday. We had 104 Cornwall residents who benefited from from the giveaway of food and supplies. Several of them from outside of the usual food pantry clientele, so that was nice. Our supplies are super low at this point, so a little push for the food pantry especially for soups and tuna fish, which are our most in need items right now. But overall, I think people are very appreciative of what we offered, and I did do some deliveries out to seniors, and people picked up for their neighbors. And so overall, I think it was a worthwhile effort. I've sent out to everyone information on how they, if they do receive SNAP or food stamp benefits, how they can call and get some of that, anything that they may have lost through the power outage reimbursed through their SNAP benefits. For those people who don't have SNAP benefits, we are taking lists right now, trying to help replenish people, giving out gift cards, that kind of thing. So we'll be doing that on Monday. But overall, I think it went really smoothly. I think people were really appreciative of what we offered, and I think it went really well. And the volunteers are critical to that effort. So kudos to them.
Great. Okay. So thank you very much, Ever, for holding that all together. And again, these are pretty difficult times individually for a lot of people. And it's great to have such a well-run network there where people looking after each other. So anyway, thank you for everything. So back on our agenda, we bounce around a little bit. We have next is facade grants. People who might be out driving around may notice the new coat of paint and new shingles on the former Wandering Moose, which is now the West Cornwall Electric Bike Shop. That was partially financed through our facade grant, which the town applied for and got money from the state, and the program pays for 80% of the renovations of the exterior of commercial or nonprofit buildings. So again, it's done that. It's helped with the renovation of the Joe Lush's plumbing house. We're looking at a couple other applications that are coming in from the Child Center and some other places. The other place that might be looking at is the Pink House to put a roof on part of the damaged roof there. I did hear from the people who are looking to redevelop West Cornwall and the pizzeria idea that they're still going forward, and they actually, the biggest holdup at this point is the regulations dealing with public water supply because of it's a public facility, and they've cleared their first hurdle, state approval for establishing a water supply for a potential restaurant there. So they are still pushing forward, which I think is really important. Even with everything going on, there is I think a noticeable vitality, energy in town, new residents here, taking interest in living here, and it's pretty exciting in a lot of ways. And that sort of goes into our next item, which is Farnsworth Properties. Two things: Barbara Farnsworth's bookstore and her house, which unfortunately burnt early in the summer. I have been in touch with her sons. It was suggested that the town look at that as a possible site for the wastewater treatment facility. They are interested in allowing the town to look at the site, and when things calm down, the engineer will go up and take a look at that. So anyway, so there's another potential site for that facility. They are also looking to sell the old bookstore, and I had conversations with several groups of people that are looking at buying the bookstore. The problem is it sits on a very small piece of property. In order to drill a well, they would need to drill it right next to the adjoining piece of property, which the town owns, which is where the firehouse used to be on a very small footprint. The town owns less than, I think, a quarter acre there. And the Farnsworths would be interested in buying that piece to make the redevelopment of the bookstore site, put in some parking and some wells. And I think that is an issue that should come before a town meeting. It has to come before a town meeting. It has to go in front of planning zoning if the town sells any property. But again, I think either of the proposals that I've heard so far help, again, the long-term revitalization of West Cornwall. And it's pretty clear that, again, whatever they put in there would have to get some sort sort of temporary variance while a sewer system is developed, because again, there's very little water supply and very little septic capacity in the bookstore itself. So I think that's one thing we will put on our docket to try to move through a town meeting process to at least allow voters a chance to sell that property to help the revitalization of West Cornwall. So again, we've been in touch with them, and they want to know town's interest. They did do an environmental survey of the firehouse and found of the old site, found it to be clean, which is what we thought it would be, but as that is the formal commercial area, they wanted to have some reassurance on that. So again, we will be discussing this in executive session afterwards, but I would think people can expect a town meeting this fall to have people vote somehow on allowing that property to be combined with the old bookstore. So that's some news from West Cornwall. Another news before the wind blew, had a very good conversation with one of my new friends at Optimum, who we've been talking regularly since last Tuesday, their government relations agent. And the word came out through research done on fiber optic cable that Optimum, which has the franchise for the Cornwall area and some other areas like Litchfield, was considering as part of the business plan replacing the cable system with fiber optic. And again, we live in interesting times. I had a very good conversation with their government relations officer, who again, that conversation was facilitated by Maria Horn. That they said, yes, that is their plan. It's interesting times for their business, and they're seeing their business model change a lot with the growth, particularly of remote businesses. They're seeing a lot of people working from homes and needing to upgrade their internet capacity throughout their service area in New York State and Connecticut, and a real shift of data to the suburbs and rural areas. So things that we're seeing here happening, social changes. Just saw a former employee of our farm walking down the street, and I said, how are things? Because she's out of school, she works in New York, said it's been a great summer. I've been up here with my family working remote the whole time. I love it. So, I mean, I think that's happening quietly all over the place. So it's good to be sort of on having these trends move in our direction. And again, this is nothing confirmed. They were talking, 21, 22 in there, but what they've also been told, what they've been done is their essential services, we all know, they have been ordered to upgrade a lot of areas in the state for remote learning. The state has a big priority to make sure, because it's likely that states, other schools that don't have the square footage per student the consolidated has are going to go to remote learning quickly this fall. They want to make sure, as not everybody signed up for that, and they went in the spring, that the lack of capacity in some areas in the state is not a reason why kids can't learn. I know there's real concern throughout the education system in the country that the cost of losing a year of education on our kids on all levels is huge, and it can't even really be quantified. But and everybody would rather do face-to-face learning, but we do the best we can in a time of crisis. So certainly this is a state priority, so they have some of their resources turned into rewiring or upgrading schools and communities. What was really interesting, though, was she said, she had Cornwall profile ahead of my call, and she refreshingly knew more than I did. about what was going on, because we do monitor everybody individually and townwide to see what's going on. And she said, you know, people throw around needing a gig of service. She said, unless you have a lot of financial transactions going on in your town, most people don't need to go up to that level, and they can upgrade for the time being services with commercial programs that can get you more power than normal residential units can get. Now, I know people have also criticized optimum service before the storm. So there's all, you know, questions, but that's what she said. So she said to us as a town, what we should do is get, as they do, they are basically our internet provider, get a survey of the town to find out where there are weak spots in the service and let them know, work with them. They do sort of a virtual map of service. What are our needs? Who is who is doing a lot of financial transactions or whatever else is chewing up? You know, there's probably people doing visual arts or something here that I don't even know about that might need a lot of capacity. So I did talk to Gary Steinhold of the effort that's being looked at, and said that was a takeaway if we can do some sort of community survey and work with it as far as where are the holes in the system now and what our people data needs. Thought it was a really good constructive idea to push us forward. Again, if this does come to pass, this would be a big game changer. And they have the resources to do this. And again, if we have increased data needs out here, they're monitoring that can't be met with their current things. They want to be able to be the one to provide that. So again, that is important information. Again, you think about if the town was going to do this by themselves, who would now be restoring that service? Having a utility that can do that has some certain advantages over the town trying to do it by itself. So again, a good conversation, good direction to look at things. Again, I think it's just the start of a possible idea, but it was good to get that confirmation that that was on their blackboard.
Does she have an example of a type of survey? I mean, you know, we can ask all these questions, but do they have like best practices?
Okay, I can, Marina, I can give you her contact stuff. Do you want to take it on a little bit?
Yeah, I can do that.
I seem to be a little busy nowadays, and again, very good conversation with her, but I think if you can just spearhead that part, is what do you need? What can we give you?
Sure, I can do that. I'm happy to take that on.
All right. Her name is Esme Lombard. So we will send you Esme's contact information following the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
So anyway, that's some new interesting information. Some other news is there was a fire at the firehouse, which is fairly unusual. Unfortunately, when someone was working on the rescue boat, caught fire and did quite a bit of smoke damage to the West Cornwall firehouse. Good response, and the boat was put out, but needed to be replaced. And we have met with Kerma, our insurance company, and it is covered. There is a deductible on it, but we will get all the equipment back. And there has been a cleaning crew in there cleaning it. Some of it will need to be repainted, but that will be covered by our insurance. And then the town has had to, buy a new boat, and the insurance will cover most of that except for our deductible. But I want to tell the board, it shows up in the audit or whatever. What are we doing? It's always good to know this is what happened, and we're glad it wasn't worse. And again, thanks to all the people there that volunteered their time. And occasionally accidents happen. Unfortunately, it happened to the department instead of to somebody else. But again, they'll be up and running. Hopefully, the new boat will be ready end of next week. So again, important service to have, and we'll make adjustments and get through this and the firehouse maintained all its operations. Another new national issue that's playing itself out here, a little bit of cybersecurity, and our voting people have been spending a lot of time with the state people, and Jonathan's been helping out with a cybersecurity plan. There's real concern. I think it's a really valid concern of cybersecurity as far as the upcoming national election. The state is on it, Homeland Security is on it, and we are working with our computer consultants to make sure we are up to date with the policies and procedures and making sure our votes are safe from that standpoint. So again, a lot of work is being spent on that to make sure that happens. So again, I think that's an update on a lot of different things, but we are meeting again next week, so we can again talk on a few things. But thanks again to Diane and Heather for bringing us up to date on that. I think it's really important, and thank you, Richard, for making this tape available, because some of these details aren't necessarily front page news, but I hope people are reassured by the efforts throughout the town to keep people safe, whether it's a hurricane or a COVID or food insecurity or unemployment or whatever. We do try to reach out, and people think about this a lot of how do we deal with this in the local level, because as we learned, again, sort of the buck stops here. We're on our own. It's a good place to be when things happen. So anyway, thanks everybody for that. Are there any public comments, questions, anything else?
I'm not public, but I just wanted to thank Gordon and Jonathan very much for all your hard work, because I always felt like I knew what was going on. And I know you guys worked really hard, and I'm very appreciative.
I did get a 6-pack of beer out of all this. So. And a nice quart of jam too. So it's not like we don't get compensated.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
And Gordon was giving people tomatoes too for their hard work.
Yeah, so it all worked out.
Yeah, that's right. All goes around. But yeah, thank you, Gordon. Gordon provides a tremendous amount of support, both to myself and other folks in town who have tough jobs to do.
Thanks. And thanks again to John. This was not in the job description.
No.
He's been great.
Yes, Hector's hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think this is a fantastic report this evening. I think it should be widely publicized, especially in the Chronicle. And it seems to me that all the elements in town, both public and private, have come through this with flying colors. Good job.
Thank you. I think
It'll be on the website.
have like a unified command, because nobody's in town is smart enough to figure all this stuff out by themselves, but having all these departments work together is how you get them. So.
And I had a question from the Lakeville Journal.
Yes.
If you had to summarize just in a sentence or two without taking a lot of time with it, how things are now. Is it all behind you, or is there still something left to be done?
Oh, I think we're looking, living in New England, we're looking out for the next one is real. I mean, did our best, we did well, but we could all do better. So we are definitely upgrading here in town. Quite modest, thinking we can do things better, but also we expect all our partners to do better. And for also the rest are really self-reliant. A lot of people put in generators and welcome people in their homes and stuff. But again, we need to be I think the takeaway is we need to be self-reliant, which is not new in New England, but it's vital to this. And again, I think that's what we're looking forward to, increase self-reliance and working together. So, and as I said, all good. I mean, I'm very proud to be part of this community.
Good.
Any other comments? So we have a short executive session to talk about our real estate proposal in West Cornwall, selling the firehouse, former firehouse lot. So then I would make a motion to go into executive session, and we'll see you all next week. And again, if you know people that are still out without utilities, let us know. There are some people still without phone that we will be calling in after the meeting. Our newfound friends at Dock Room said they would be back there at tomorrow night. And again, as all this communication is really important, and as this is all evolving and trying to, say at least on the curve. But I think people did really well. Use some ingenuity how to get there. So anyway, thank you all, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Right,
So I can lock,
right,
I'll kick people out and then lock it.
yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna kick people out and unlock it.
I can still record not that
The
record the executive session, but I just want to know, I do have the recording already done, right, for the regular meeting?
We're just going,
Yeah.
I'm making a motion to go into executive session, and
Yeah.
then, we'll talk about what we did next Tuesday.
Well, I'm going to say goodnight.
Good night, Richard.
Good night, Rich.
Hopefully I'll get this on the Cornwall website as soon as possible and onto the community network.
You got it. Okay, Richard, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Almost there.
Okay.